Threads over the hollow. The ladders moved like ribs under the cliff, a slow-breathing Corin could feel in the arches of his feet. He kept one hand through the rope and the other on the basket braced to his hip. River trout thumped against woven reed, still cool from the gorge water. Fog climbed with him, soft as wool and wet as a dog's nose, smudging the world so that the huts above seemed to float. Up, then. Old Maret's voice drifted down, thin and stubborn. Before the mist eats your boots. Corin grinned at the gray shape leaning on a staff at the ledge and hauled himself onto the timber platform. The wood flexed. The cliff exhaled. He set the basket down and blew into his hands. Rope burns had made fine red rings around each finger, new moons of work. If anyone's hungry for boots, it'll be me, Corin said. The mist can eat bones for all I care. Maret's laugh scratched like dry leaves. The gorge eats what falls, boy. Bones, boots, and pride all the same. Corin's grin flashed, teeth pale against sun-browned skin. His hair was a tumble of dawn-gold curls, damp with mist and plastered to his temples. Along his cheekbones faint amber speckles caught the fading light, dawn-born markings that always seemed just shy of glowing. He shifted the basket higher on his hip, wiry shoulders restless, as if even his bones wanted to keep moving. Mareth leaned heavier on his staff. His cloak was the same gray as the fog, so that he seemed half swallowed by it, and his pale eyes gleamed sharp as gull cries. Wisps of silvery hair clung damp to his head, and faint mist-born speckles shimmered along his beard and knuckles like dew before fading again. He tapped his staff against the boards. Your father thought the same, the day he climbed down to check an anchor. Thought the rope would hold. Thought the gorge would spare him. The words struck harder than the staff. Everyone knew Corin's father had gone down with the east line, swallowed before the rope came back empty. The story was still told in lowered voices when the fog grew thick, as if the gorge itself might overhear. Corin dropped his eyes, jaw set, and walked on without answering. Beyond them, Vera's hollow showed itself in pieces as the fog thinned, half a dozen terraces notched into the rock, each crowded with houses stitched from bark linen and stone. Between the roofs ran the shard braid, a pale cord stitched through the fog. Dozens of small, silver-washed shards were bound into triple strands and drawn tight between carved posts. Alone, each crystal was too thin to burn for long, but woven together they held steady, a quiet line of light that kept the terraces from being swallowed whole. Corin tugged the basket along the walkway toward the smokehouse. The platform boards were scored with old rope marks, each groove a memory of a hull. The gorge wind rose, tasting of stone and trout and the bitter snap of stone leaf drying on racks. Somewhere a child shrieked with laughter, somewhere a pot lid clanged and a voice scolded, then softened. The hollow was loud in small ways. He found Riva near the edge, where the wind came cleanest. She stood with her palm laid against the upright trunk of an echo harp, mist-gray hair braided down her spine, the ends frayed from chewing when she thought too long. Her skin bore the pale cast of river stone, and faint mist-born speckles shimmered across her cheeks like dew on a spider's thread. Her pale blue eyes were fixed outward, sharp as gulls on the wing. When her fingers plucked the harp's crystal wires, the gorge wind seemed to lean into her touch, its hull softening into something almost like a voice. Mistborn were born to read air the way others read soil, and Riva's harp was her way of listening. Trying to make the wind sing polite? Corin asked. Trying to make it tell me what's coming, she replied, not looking up. Her long, calloused fingers twisted a peg of breath, then released it. The harp moaned low. A note you felt in your ribs before you heard it. And? Corin pressed, stepping closer. What's it saying? She plucked a sharper note, cutting the fog like a blade. It's saying keep your ladders tied tight. And don't be foolish. He grinned. That last part doesn't sound like the wind. That sounds like you. Riva shot him a sidelong glance, but her mouth twitched despite herself. The shard braid above the nearest roofs gave a tiny shiver. Corin glanced up, caught the flicker, the single heartbeat where the silver went thin and the fog pressed greedy. His shoulders tightened. "You saw that," Rivas said, not asking. "Third time this week." Corin shifted the basket lid and let the steam rise. "Brought trout. If the shard braid goes, at least we'll have dinner in the dark." Rivas' smile didn't reach her eyes. "Stone leaf stew tonight. They're already slicing cliff roots. Marath says we'll need strong food if the gorge is in a mood." "The gorge is always in a mood." Corin hunched nearer the edge and peered over. The gorge fell away into a softness that felt like no distance at all and every distance at once. When the fog thinned in strips, he could see the river far below, a thread of quicksilver, and the black stumps of fallen trees caught on shelves of rock. "It's hungry," he muttered. "Don't give it ideas," Rivas said, her fingers brushing a calmer chord. The wind eased, almost as if it listened. Marath shuffled closer, staff knocking the boards in a rhythm older than any of them. "Tie 2 frays, make 1 rope," he said, the way he said it whenever talk began to scrape. "That's our business. Braiding. Not feeding the ravine your dramatic thoughts." Corin tipped his head. "I wasn't being dramatic." "You were thinking like your father," Marath countered. Corin stiffened again, though the words hit less sharply this time. He had already braced for them. Rivas' voice came quick, as if to catch the silence before it broke. "Idrin's been hammering since dawn. I heard him drop something heavy and curse loud enough to shake post 3. Blind hammering makes bent nails," Marath said. "Binder ought to drink his stone leaf and sleep." Corin snorted. "Tell him that. Better yet, send me to tell him that, and he'll throw me into his bin with the scraps." The smokehouse door thumped open. Warm air rolled out smelling of fish and ash. Alan, big-shouldered and flour-dusted from the baker's lean-to, jerked his chin. "You bringing those trout inside or teaching them to climb?" "Coming," Corin called. He hefted the basket, but Marath's bony, bark-skinned hand caught his wrist a moment, steady. Inside, the smokehouse shimmered with soft shard light. People moved through silver haze like shadows, passing bowls and knives, bundling mist fruit crisps with reed. Riva set a jug of fogberry syrup on the shelf and spooned stoneleaf into a kettle, the leaves snapping like thin ice as they met heat. Bitter scent unfurled, Corin grimaced even before sipping. "Do you think we'll cancel?" Riva asked, very low. Corin's grip tightened on the knife in his hand. The Moon's Hard Festival was a week away, the one night the hollow strung lanterns across the gorge from cliff to cliff, silver light woven through mist. Traders came, children stayed awake, and for a few hours the hollow was more than survival. "No," Corin said. "We can't." Before Riva could answer, a knock thudded at the doorframe. Idrin filled the space, massive as the binder's bench itself. His skin was the gray of rain-darkened stone, fissures running along his forearms and dusted white with crystal powder. His hair was cropped short but always looked powdered with dust. A crescent scar curved across his jaw, pale against granite skin, as if the cliff had once tried to keep him. He stepped inside, laying a length of twisted shard wire on the bench with unnecessary care. "Anchor ring snapped on the east line," he said, voice heavy as rockfall. "Sheared clean." Corin frowned. "It wasn't that worn." "Wasn't the wear," Idrin cut in. He held up the wire, scarred fingers pinching it tight. The cliff shifted under it. "A clean break. I've seen it before. It doesn't give back what it takes. You brace, or you fall." Corin caught the flick of his eyes, not at him, but past him, into memory. Idrin had been there the day the east line failed, the day the gorge kept his father. The scar along his jaw had been a gift from the same storm. "Wind took it, then?" Marath asked. "Wind helped," Idrin allowed. But the stone moved. We've got hairline cracks near post 3. I've braced it, but if the ground under the posts gives way, the shard braid will drag them off like roots in a flood. Triple threading won't matter. The words dropped like stone into water, blunt and final. Riva's eyes tracked the smokehouse wall as if she could see through it to the cord outside. We can triple thread the weak spans. Distribute strain. Tie 2 frays. Idren shook his head, though not unkindly. Triple threads are ropework, not stonework. If the ground goes, no braid will save it. I'll need 8 hands at dawn to set new plates. Volunteers who can take orders. Hands went up. They always did. The Hollow had no bodies to spare, yet they spared them anyway. Not you, Idren told Corin, chisel sharp. You're running ladders. Stoneleaf and mistfruit on all terraces. If we brace fast. Corin bit back his protest. Running ladders wasn't nothing. But it wasn't fixing. We'll hold, Mareth said. It sounded like a prayer if you tilted it. Idren didn't answer. He lifted the wire again, turning it in his hand as if measuring his own failure, then set it down and looked at Riva. Softer. Sing the wind steady if you can. The harp calms the children. Riva's pale eyes flicked toward the door, then back. The wind isn't a child. Sing anyway. Fog closed around him as he left, wrung tight like cloth between stones. Later. When the bowls were washed and the last racks of fish smoked, Corin stood again under the shard braid. The fog had thinned to ragged shawls. Stars showed themselves in shy patches. The braid hummed faintly, a taste of metal if you breathed with your teeth. He reached up without thinking, touched one shard where the lines sagged. Cool as river water. Small as a thumbnail. Riva came beside him, her braid dark with damp, sleeves pulled down to hide her hands. She looked at his fingers on the shard, then at his face. You're thinking, she said. I do it sometimes, he said lightly. Don't climb. I didn't say climb. You didn't have to. Her chin was set in that way he knew too well, fear pressed into stubbornness. He let go of the shard. Its small chill lingered in his skin. Tie 2 frays, he said. Make 1 rope, she finished, softer. Sleep now. We'll need our knots tomorrow. They started toward the huts. Behind them, deep in the cliff, a low murmur rolled. Not the usual settling of stone. Something else, like a boulder remembering a different place to be. The shard braid shivered, and flickered once more.